Have you ever ruined a good smoke with a bad cut? We have. I'm Gordon Mott, the executive editor of Cigar Aficionado magazine.
And I'm David Savona, senior editor.
We're at the Carnegie Club here today to show you the best way to cut a cigar. Now, there are many ways that you can cut a cigar, but as you know, a bad cut can truly spoil your smoke. But to understand how to avoid those cutting mistakes, you need to know how a cigar is put together.
A handmade cigar is held together at the top by a cap, which is placed there with a odorless, flavorless, vegetable-based adhesive. Beneath that cap is what we call the shoulder of the cigar. When you're cutting a cigar, you want to aim above the shoulder. If you get lower than that, you run the risk of the wrapper coming off because there's nothing holding the cigar together anymore. It'll unravel and you'll end up with a mouthful of tobacco, and it's really going to ruin your smoking experience.
But Dave, it's not just a bad cut that can ruin a cigar. A bad cutter can also.
That's right. If you have a cheap, dull cutter with a dull blade, it's going to tear through the wrapper of the cigar rather than slicing it. What you want is a quality cutter with a very sharp blade, kind of like having a sharp knife in your kitchen. It's a tool that'll give you a better result with your cigar. But Gordon, what's your favorite way of cutting a cigar?
Well, I have one right here. It's a double blade guillotine cutter that has two blades that you open up like that to create the opening for the cigar. Now, there are a couple of different kinds of cigars on the market in terms of shapes. There are figurados, which include pyramids, torpedoes, and perfectos. The pyramids and torpedoes have sharp pointed ends. The perfectos have both ends closed off and sort of rounded. This is a parejo, which is a straight-sided cigar that has the cap and shoulder that Dave was talking about. So what you want to do is find that point on the cigar where the cap comes over the shoulder, and you want to cut above that line that you can see on the cigar. So you place the cigar just right in the opening above where the cap is attached, and then you cut it with a sharp motion that produces a wide open cut across the entire head of the cigar. Now at this point, I also will take my finger and just brush off any loose pieces of tobacco that might have been left when you made the cut.
That's a good tip. I actually like to tap my cigar in the ashtray to get rid of some of that excess tobacco after I cut. I'm going to cut a figurado here. This one's a pyramid or a torpedo. As you can see, it has a pointed tip. And with a figurado like this, what you want to do is aim down about 1/4 of an inch from the tip of the cigar. Again, I'm using a double-bladed guillotine cutter. You can't use a wedge cutter or a bullet cutter on this type of a cigar. Squeeze the cutter together in a sharp motion, taking off that 1/4 of an inch tip. And what I like to do after cutting this type of a cigar is to take a cold taste to test the draw of the cigar. If it's not full enough, I might take just a little bit more to give myself a fuller draw. Better to take too little at first than to take too much.
Yeah, Dave, I actually like to take a fuller cut on a pyramid like that because I like that fuller draw that you get with a deeper cut. What do you do with a perfecto?
With a perfecto, it's the same idea from the top, but it changes a little bit on the bottom. Now, perfectos are shaped on both sides. This is a short story. You can see it has a rounded tip and a pointed nub at the bottom. And of course, you're going to open up the top just by taking off a little bit. Now, some people think you should take off about 1/4 of an inch on the foot, which gives you a fuller draw because it's so narrow here. Me, I prefer to light it just as it is and to work with that narrow draw until it opens up to the fatter point of the cigar and the draw gets fuller.
Yeah, I actually like to cut off the foot also because I like to get that cigar going full steam right away.
You know, it's funny, all this talk we've had here about cutters, all the people I know in the cigar industry, people who own cigar factories, the thing they do with their cigars more often than not is they use their hands. They pinch off a little bit of the cap with their finger, or even take their fingernail and flick off the entire cap. And it's something I can't do.
No, I can't do that either. And in fact, you run the risk, if you try that, of leaving the wrapper leaf exposed, which means it will begin to unravel and your cigar can become unsmokable. I think the important thing to remember for every cigar smoker is that cutting is part of the ritual of enjoying a great smoke. So you need to find a way that you're comfortable with so that every time you cut a cigar, you end up with a smoke that you enjoy.